Assalamu alaikum, grade 2. How are you? I hope you're happy and safe. Our lesson today is Slow Changes to Earth's Landscape. It's the first lesson of unit number 3, Earth's Changing Landscape. So interesting. Let's start it. The objective of our lesson today is to make observations to construct an evidence-based account of how wind and water change Earth's landscape. Look at these 3 friends. They are Penny, Max, and Carlos. They are talking about changes to the shapes of landforms. Landforms, we have talked about them in the last semester. Can you give examples of landforms, grade 2? Yes, great job, like mountains, plains, valleys, and hills. In this lesson, we are going to learn more about landforms and how are they changing. So, let's see which friend has the best idea. Carlos said, I think water can change the shape of land. Penny said, I think wind can change the shape of land. Max said, I think both water and wind can change the shape of land. What about you, grade 2? What do you think? Which friend has the best idea? Carlos, Penny, or Max? Think about it, choose your answer, and explain your thinking in this space. We will back to this page at the end of the lesson. Let's watch this video. What's this? It's a canyon. Amazing! Observe the shape of the rocks, grade 2. What do you think, grade 2? How did this canyon form? Amazing! What about these rocks? How did they form? And what do you wonder about what you see in this video? Really interesting. Finally, observe this photo, grade 2. What do you think, grade 2? How did this rock get its shape? What about this tunnel? What do you wonder about this rock, grade 2? Write your question in this space, grade 2. And circle parts of the rock you think have changed on the photo. For me, I have a big question. How did the tunnel get there? And how long did it take? Let's take another look. Here it is. How did this tunnel get there? And how long did it take? To understand more, let's do this inquiry activity. Changing rocks. The purpose of this activity is to observe how water and rocks can change other rocks.
To carry out this investigation, you'll use safety goggles, 10 pebbles, 8 small pieces of chalk, a jar with a lid, a stopwatch, a hand lens, water, and a paper towel. To complete this activity, you'll shake pebbles, chalk, and water in different combinations to observe the effects. Before you begin, make a prediction. How will water and rocks affect the way chalk changes? Before you begin, to protect your eyes, you'll need to put on your safety goggles. Start by using your hand lens to observe the 4 pieces of chalk. Now place the 10 pebbles and 4 pieces of chalk in the jar. Attach the lid to the jar by twisting the lid clockwise. Twist the lid until you can't turn it anymore. For the next step, your partner will use the stopwatch to time you as you shake the jar for 2 minutes. Remember to hold on to the jar tightly with both hands as you shake it. Stop shaking the jar when your partner tells you to. Leave the lid on your jar as you observe the chalk with the hand lens. What do you see? Wait a minute before removing the lid. Carefully remove the lid. Pick out the 4 pieces of chalk and place them in front of you. Use the hand lens to get a closer look at the chalk. Pick out the 10 pebbles and set them down in front of you. Slowly and carefully empty any powder in the jar into a trash can. Move slowly so you do not create a cloud of chalk dust. Now record your data. In your notebook, draw what you observed. Next, you're going to see what effect adding water has when you shake the pebbles and chalk. Do you think there will be a difference? Add the 10 pebbles and 4 new pieces of chalk to the jar. Slowly pour the water into the jar. Attach the lid to the jar. Turn the lid until it is tight. Just as before, your partner will use the stopwatch to time you as you shake the jar for 2 minutes. Remember to hold on to the jar tightly with both hands as you shake it. Stop shaking the jar when your partner tells you to. Observe the jar, water, pebbles, and chalk. Walk to the sink. Loosen the lid on the jar, but do not remove the lid completely. We want to empty the water, but stop the solid pieces of chalk and pebbles from falling into the sink. Carefully empty the water into the sink. Rinse the sink with water, then return to your workspace. Carefully remove the lid. Pick out the 4 pieces of chalk and place them in front of you. If your chalk is still wet, you can place it on a folded paper towel. We used a sheet of black construction paper to make observing the chalk easier. Use the hand lens to get a closer look at the chalk. What differences do you see? Record your data. Draw or write about the chalk in your notebook. Look at the 3 pieces of chalk. Going from left to right on the screen, you see the chalk that was shaken with the water and pebbles, the chalk that was shaken with just pebbles, and a piece of chalk that was not shaken at all. Now that you've finished collecting your data, take some time to communicate your findings. Use your data to complete the Communicate Information section.
What do you think of grade 2? How did the water affect the way the chalk changed? I think the chalk broke up more in the water. But why do you think the chalk changed more? For me, I think the water makes the chalk softer. The chalk comes apart more easily when a pebble hits the chalk. Question number 9. Observe the water in the jar. Explain what happened. Can you grade 2? Yes, the water is not very clear because it has pieces of the chalk floating in it. Question number 10. Did your observations support your prediction? Why or why not? Back to your prediction here. How will water affect the way the chalk changes? What was your prediction? For me, I predicted that the chalk will break apart more with water. So, my answer here, yes, the chalk broke apart more in the water. Question number 11. Look at this rock. Circle a part of the rock that has changed. What do you think of grade 2? What about this part, this part, this part, this part, and this part? What do you think? Circle one or all of them, like this one. What do you think caused the rock to change over time? What do you think of grade 2? Can you see the water here? Water washed part of it away, or the wind knocked some of it off. In the activity, you saw water and pebbles break down chalk into smaller pieces. Chalk is a kind of rocks. The breaking down of rocks into smaller pieces is called weathering. What is it, grade 2? It's weathering. So, weathering is the breaking down of rocks into smaller pieces. Water and wind can break down rocks into small rocks. And small rocks can break down into sand or soil. So, water and wind help weathering to be happened. Over time, weathering changes the shape and size of rocks. Yes, it takes a long time because we are talking about rocks. Usually, rocks are so tough and strong. Now observe this photo, grade 2. How did weathering change the rock below? What do you think? For me, I think a strong wind broke off bits of the rock over time. There is no water here. Tiny grains of sand can cause big changes in a desert. Winds blow sand against tall rocks. The sand cuts the rocks like a knife. Observe this tall rock. Observe how it's shaped. The sand changed the shape of this rock this way. It has a big hole now. The shapes of the rocks change slowly over time. It may take many years. We have another question here. Think about the changing rocks activity. How did the activity show weathering? What do you think, grade 2? The water and pebbles broke the chalk down into smaller pieces. This is the weathering. Now we have a stronger question. You have read that blowing sand can change the shape of a rock. Explain why you cannot see this kind of change. What do you think, grade 2? You know it takes a long time. So this is because it takes many years for blowing sand to change the shape of a rock. That's enough for today, grade 2. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.